Hi, my name is Catherine Mardikes. I am the League of Women. I'm the Executive Vice President of the League of Women Voters of Chicago. I want to welcome you all here to the 26th Ward Aldermanic Candidates Forum. Before we get started, just a quick blurb about our organization. The League of Women Voters of Chicago is a nonpartisan grassroots organization working to protect and expand voting rights and to ensure everyone is represented in our democracy. We empower voters and defend democracy through advocacy and education. Through this forum, we hope that we all become better informed about the issues facing our communities and become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. I'm now going to turn everything over. Oh, and I will put in the chat for all of you a link to the League of Women Voters. And you will see me again at the end, and I'll give you some voting information. But now I would like to introduce you to Inanna Kansa, who is going to be our moderator for the evening. And I will spotlight. But before I do, let me go ahead and spotlight our candidates. Getting ourselves all ready here. And okay. Go ahead, Inanna, you're on.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. I will begin by introducing our two candidates. So please welcome Ms. Angee Gonzalez Rodriguez and Ms. Jessie Fuentes. Before we start with our questions for tonight, some quick ground rules to note. As mentioned earlier, we will be taking audience questions through the chat, and we will also be asking prepared questions that reflect prior community input. In addition, response times will be indicated for each question. The candidates will be allowed to finish their sentence once started, but I will enforce strict time limits, namely through using the mute feature. If a candidate does not use all the time allotted for a response, the unused time cannot be applied to any other questions. To keep track of time, we will be using paddles held up by the timekeeper to alert candidates as to when they have 1 minute, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and when their time has elapsed. And now let's start by hearing from our candidates. We're going to begin with 90-second opening statements. Here, candidates are asked to include why they want to be aldermen and what their qualifications are. So we're going to begin with Ms. Gonzalez Rodriguez. You have 90 seconds.
Right. Allowing us the time to say. So I'm Angee Gonzalez Rodriguez. I am currently the committee woman in the 26th Ward. I have a master's degree in law. I've been working in our community for over 30 years. I have organized free art, karate, and culinary classes in the community. During the height of COVID, my organization gave out over 60,000 boxes of food. And I am running because I have grandchildren that are being raised in our community. And I want a better life for them. I want them to have better schooling. I want them to be in a safer environment. So I figure if I want something done, got to step up to the plate and do it myself. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to Ms. Fuentes.
Thank you all for hosting these candidate forum. It's actually the first forum that 26 Ward candidates are participating in. And so I'm super excited to be here with you all and fellow candidate Angee Gonzalez. My name is Jessie Fuentes. I was born and raised in the Humboldt Park community. I am a product of a very diverse and beautiful community area. The 26th Ward will now represent Westtown, Humboldt Park, Logan Square, Belmont, Cragen, and Hermosa, all diverse communities that deserve an aldermanic leader who's going to lead with love and care. We in our community have suffered the process of gentrification. And it has been a double-edged sword. While we have developments in the 26th ward, it has meant in many ways the disinvestment of our institutions, organizations, and efforts towards public safety. We have 11 elementary schools and 2 high schools in the 26th ward that deserve to be fully funded. We have working families that are being displaced due to the increase of rent and property taxes. We also have public safety concerns that deserve quality investment of mental health resources and intervention and prevention. I'm qualified to be able to do this work because I spent 10 years in education, the last 3 years doing policy work, and I understand what it means to legislate, advocate, and organize. And the 26th ward deserves someone who's going to lead with love and care. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Now we've heard why you think you are ready for this position, but tell us now, if elected alderperson, what do you think your biggest challenge in office will be, and how will you work to overcome it? For this question, you have 30 seconds, and we will begin with Ms. Fuentes.
Thank you. The greatest challenge, we've been knocking on doors for the last 5 months, and there are 2 things that families are most concerned with. That is their ability to sustain themselves financially in this community, and that of public safety. We have families that send their children to school and are terrified if those children will make it back. We know that in order to address the root causes of public safety, it would take a long time. And so we need to be able to legislate, partner with our colleagues to be able to have processes and intervention in place immediately. And I will make sure that we are holding city agencies accountable to investing right here in the 26th ward.
Thank you. Now for Ms. Gonzalez, you have 30 seconds.
So as I was canvassing out in the community, I was told our biggest concerns are community safety and lack of after-school programs. And I believe that teaming up with our police officers and balancing with the CPS schools, we can bring programs in that can both educate our community, but also providing services for violence prevention and better school funding.
Thank you. As both of you touched on, gun violence and public safety are among the top concerns in the ward and throughout Chicago. What realistically could you do as an alderperson and member of the City Council to reduce gun violence and improve public safety in the short term and the long term? We're going to give you guys 60 seconds to answer, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Well, we could fight for an ordinance in City Council and with the state to request and require and demand stronger gun legislation. Geez, I'm losing my train of thought here. We can oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm losing my train of thought. There's too much going on over here. We can fight for a better gun. Oh my God, Jesus, I'm so sorry about this. I'm freezing my words. Sorry about that. Stronger gun violence, but fight to keep our kids from owning these weapons of that are used in wars.
Right, thank you. And just for a quick note, if there are any topics candidates feel like they have not touched on sufficiently, they will have time to do so in their closing statements. And now we will be moving on to Ms. Fuentes. You have 60 seconds.
Absolutely, thank you. I think, first and foremost, we need to create processes and programs that allow our police officers to focus on the one thing, and that is to resolve crime. We need to ensure that we are opening mental health clinics, investing in street intervention, and investing in de-escalators and therapists to be able to respond to the concerns that we have in our community, the mental health crisis, the resident disturbances. If we can create those things, police can do what is needed, and that is to respond and resolve crime in our community. I'm going to be a firm advocate and champion for treatment, not trauma. The ordinance that is going to ensure that we are helping our community grapple with the historical and generational trauma that we see here. In addition, we need to make sure that we are investing in fully funded schools. We want to make sure that our young people are being educated and can go into after-school programs, art programs that are going to keep them safe in the evenings and on the weekends. In the short term, we want to make sure that we are providing the safety that our community needs, and that is to make sure that we can provide and reimagine policing in our community.
Thank you, candidates. Before we move on, a quick note on audience questions. Audience questions must be aimed towards both candidates and not just one. So please keep that in mind when asking your questions. But now moving on to a follow-up question. How do you see yourself working with the newly elected council of the 14th Police District and its Police District Commander, as well as the Community Commission for Public Safety and Accountability? For this question, you will have 30 seconds starting with Ms. Fuentes.
Thank you. For me, it's about building a coalition, and I think that it's extremely important, and we have a moral obligation to create spaces in which we can have dialogue with one another. The commander of 14th District, the ECPS Council District, our street intervention and prevention programs, as well as the ward office, should be working together to listen to community and put together comprehensive plans that are going to respond to the very concerns of our community. We have been disjointed, and that's not a secret. My job as an alder person will be to make sure that I am a convener of all of those entities and creating a seamless plan that we can all agree on that's going to ensure that community input is at hand.
Thank you. And now moving on to Ms. Gonzalez. You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Sorry about previously. So I want to work with community to bring some violence prevention programs, develop solutions, and bring back some Black clubs. All of us working together, the community, our office, and the police department working together to find solutions to the issues that are going on in our community. We need better resources for our children to stay out of the street. And I believe working with our police hand in hand is key to resolving the issue.
Thank you. Now we will be moving on to 2 yes or no questions. How these are going to work is I will ask the question, and then I will ask you to raise your hand if you are in agreement, opposition, or are unsure or would like to elaborate. At the end of these 2 questions, you will have 30 seconds to elaborate on your response. First question. Should the Chicago Police Department move forward with the Criminal Enterprise Information System, the new gang database? If you believe that the Chicago Police Department should, please raise your hand. If you do not, please raise your hand. Thank you. Second question. Are you in favor of passing the Peace Book Ordinance? The Peace Book is a youth-led initiative that will support the development and implementation of youth-led, non-carceral, and non-policing initiatives for improving community safety and health. If you are in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you. And now we will have 30 seconds for you to elaborate on your answers, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Sorry. So I do believe, can you say the first question again? I'm sorry.
Yes. Should the Chicago Police Department move forward with the Criminal Enterprise Information System or the new gang database?
Okay. So I think moving forward with that, it gives our kids a disadvantage because some kids that weren't in gangs are placed in that list and it is used against them. So I think they're placed at a disadvantage. I think we need to remove that list. Some kids that are on that list, honestly, they may look like thugs, they may, be rough around the edges, but they are not. And being placed on that list just puts them at a disadvantage. And it's mainly in the Black and brown communities that this is happening.
Thank you. And now moving on to Ms. Fuentes.
Thank you. I'm in agreement. I think that the gang database continues to perpetuate the stereotypes of young Black and brown people in our community. And unfortunately, we create a prison-like system in our communities and in our public educational institutions when we keep something like a gang database in place. I believe in alternatives to the carceral system. We have to begin thinking about restorative justice measures, about engaging in healing-centered engagement, and ensuring that we're investing in intervention and prevention programs that are not the pipeline to prison.
Thank you, candidates. Now that we have discussed the issue of public safety, we will be moving on to mental health. The city of Chicago is in the midst of a mental health crisis. Young people have been traumatized by gun violence, while untreated citizens live on the street or are often locked up in Cook County Jail. How can the city establish more mental health facilities and services and make sure that they are placed where they are needed the most? For this question, you will have 60 seconds, and we will begin with Ms. Fuentes.
Thank you. The mental health crisis across the country should be sounding an alarm everywhere. We have communities, specifically communities of color, that have been facing historical and generational trauma. We have young people that are traumatized by the gun violence in our communities, the prison-like environment in our schools, and the lack of culturally competent curriculum and programming around them. During the Rahm administration, we closed public mental health clinics across the city of Chicago, disrupting access to mental health services, specifically in communities of color. I am committed to ensuring that we can put together creative ways of producing revenue in the city of Chicago to reopen those public mental health clinics, because we have to do away with the privatization of the love and care and the health that our communities deserve. And so if elected into city council, I am committed to ensuring that we reopen at least one of the public health clinics in the first term.
Thank you. And now moving on to Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I'm in agreement here. Our city is going through a crisis, a mental health crisis, and because of the Rahm administration, so many locations have closed, and we don't have areas in our community where we can provide services. As your elected official, I will fight 2 to 3 sites to provide mental health services in emergent care. Like instead of calling 911, you call this number to get these services. But our schools need nurses and mental health workers also in them. And I just think that having someone in office that can champion for these issues, that can help move these forward, we can find the money. There's money out there. We can find it. We can restore the mental health facilities in the 26th ward.
All right, thank you, candidates. For a quick follow-up question. The Treatment Not Trauma Ordinance is a crisis response program that dispatches mental health professionals and an EMT to mental health emergency calls instead of police officers. Do you support this ordinance? For this questions, you have 30 seconds, and we will begin with Ms. Gonzalez.
Yes, I absolutely support it, because there are police officers out here that are not trained for mental health calls, and not every call is a police issue. We need to keep our policing and bring in mental health to take those calls, because there's different ways that police work, and mental health is not their forte. They do need specialized training to get mental health ready. So I think treatment not trauma is great.
Thank you. And now moving on to Ms. Fuentes.
Yeah, I think that 33rd Ward Alderwoman Rosana Rodriguez was right on target when she developed the Treatment Not Trauma Ordinance. We can no longer continue to traumatize our community by having individuals respond to calls in which they are not equipped to resolve for the crisis at hand. The treatment not trauma ordinance is going to ensure that specialists and professionals are responding to the mental health concerns in our community and ensuring that there is a 24-hour crisis center that can handle and manage the flood of those calls, right? And for me, that's extremely important.
Right, thank you, candidates. Now we will be moving on to our next topic of education. Starting off with this question. Chicago's 50 aldermen don't have obvious power over city schools. They don't choose who sits on the education board, pick the school's chief, or have any say over closing schools. Furthermore, they don't control budgets, contracts, or any personnel issues. Now for the question. How can you, as a concerned alderman, still have an impact on the quality and trajectory of schools in your ward? We will begin with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. I believe that aldermanic individuals in city council have the ability to mobilize and organize to ensure that we are holding the district accountable. We also have to be able to mobilize in our communities with concerted efforts. The most powerful boards in our school are local school councils, and yet we have not done a good enough job in raising consciousness in our communities to engage parents and community members to be involved at that level. Local school councils have power over who their school administrator is, how you spend that budget, and ultimately the type of education and curriculum that we are rolling out in our schools. More importantly, we have to be able to work alongside our unions to make sure that teachers are getting the fair share that they deserve, that we are advocating for just and equitable funding. We have to be able to take on the antiquated funding formula of the Chicago Public School District that allows for schools and communities of color to be woefully underfunded. We can no longer stand for that. So while there's no voting in city council, you can assure that I'm going to rally so that we do better.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Gonzalez, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I'm in agreement. I will rally for better schools in the 26th ward. I believe as your alderperson, I can organize an educational committee, inviting all of the members of the LSC in every school in the 26th ward to meet, focus on improving schools, and most importantly, bringing up our high school and college graduate rates. I want to find on bettering the school and education. And I am part of a LSC at Lowell School, and I see the needs in our school. We need a balanced. We need open enrollment. We need a school librarian and a school nurse. We need after-school programs, mainly music. There's so much that we can champion for as the alderman or as the alderperson in the ward, and that would be me at City Council.
All right, thank you, candidates. Now, something you both touched on is local school councils. So for a follow-up question, how will you work to strengthen local school councils? And starting in 2024, how will you support and/or check the new elected school board? You will have 30 seconds to answer this question, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Well, as a LSC member, we are overlooked by our community. We are, I would get more community members involved in our local school council because they are the ones that make of the community, and just getting more and more parents involved, more community members is key to moving forward with local school councils.
Thank you. Now moving on to Ms. Fuentes.
Yeah, we would utilize the 26th ward office to build consciousness across the district. There are so many parents and neighbors and constituents that do not understand the power of a local school council or the role and the power that they have. We will utilize the communications of the 26th ward office to ensure that every resident feels empowered to engage in that. In terms of the elected school board, we also have to make sure that our parents are funded, supported, and engaged in running for those positions. Those cannot be positions in which the parents that make with the very fabric of this community, do not participate in.
All right, thank you both. We will be ending discussion on this topic with a simple yes or no question. For this question, do you support a tuition-free system for community college? If you support such a system, please raise your hand. If you do not support such a system, oh, I see both hands raised. All right, thank you both. And remember, if you would like to elaborate on any topic, you are free to do so in your closing statements. And now we will be switching off to the topic of spending money. Now, alderpersons have control of the ward's menu money, discretionary funds that can be used on the ward's needs. The amount is about $1.5 million. In addition, they seem to have influence over how TIF monies are spent. TIF stands for Tax Increment Financing, and it is collected from homes and businesses in TIF areas. This money can be used to improve infrastructure or provide other incentives to encourage economic development in the area. Now for your question. How do you plan on spending the ward's menu money and TIF funds? Would you be willing to have meetings with community groups and the residents of the ward to discuss setting priorities? For this question, you will have 60 seconds, starting with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. We will engage in a participatory budgeting process that allows community members to provide proposals to the 26th Ward office and how they see spending the 1.7 million in menu money. There are enough aldermanic folks across the city of Chicago that utilize menu money for their own discretion and for their own personal gain. I want to ensure that we are spending the money across the 26th Ward the way our residents see fit. There are so many precincts that we just have picked up in the new map in the most western part of the ward, in which families in Belmont, Kurgan, and Hermosa have not received basic services. We have blocks without lights, roads that haven't been paved in over a decade, alleys infested with rats because they have not been baited. And that is because their voices have been left out. And how do we spend money? That menu doesn't belong to me. Those dollars are not in my bank account. Those belong to community, and they have a right to say how they're going to spend it.
Thank you. Now moving on to Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. So my plan is to bring the community in on any decisions that are being made with the TIF money. But the TIF money mainly should be used on our schools, on our business infrastructures. So I plan to have community forums where the community is the one that decides what and where this money is spent. Also, the $1.7 million for the ward, we need to pave our streets. We need to get these alleys right. We need our trees trimmed. There's so much that needs to be done in the ward, those areas which have been neglected. So we're going to go out and survey the area where the most need is. We'll start there and we'll work our way down, but the money has to go into the ward because that is what it's for our community.
All right, thank you both. Our next question is regarding Soldier Field. Should the city of Chicago spend $2 billion or more of taxpayers' money to dome and renovate Soldier Field as a way to convince the Bears to stay in Chicago instead of moving to Arlington Heights? For this question, you have 30 seconds, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Look, I love Soldier Field. I love watching the games, but I don't think tax money should be utilized for that. Tax money needs to be utilized for the taxpayers, not to try to build a dome for the sports. They make enough money, they can fix their own roof or put their own roof. Thank you.
Thank you. And now Ms. Fuentes.
Sorry, had a hard time unmuting there. Yeah, we have schools that need to be invested in. We have young people that deserve quality that deserve art programs, that deserve after-school programs. We have communities that have small businesses that had to close their doors in the pandemic and need revenue to stay alive because they make up the very fabric of our community and they are a part of our economic growth. Look, the Bears are fantastic, but we have communities that are in dire need of investment, and those dollars deserve to come right here to this community.
All right, thank you so much. And now we will be transitioning to one of our audience questions. Here you will have 30 seconds to answer. As for the question, storefronts along Division Avenue have been sitting empty for years. What is your plan to help this area grow and thrive and to better reflect all of its residents who live here? We are going to start with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. Look, on Division, North Avenue, and Armitage alone, we have over 40 vacant commercial storefronts. Division Street is one of the cultural enclaves of the Puerto Rican community, a commercial corridor that deserves to be thriving. It deserves a nightlife. It deserves the arts. I'm going to make sure that we are leaning on city agencies to provide cultural lending programs for our small businesses, that we can also provide the training to be able to allow small business owners to begin to formalize their business practices so they qualify for the grants and the aid that the city provides.
Thank you. And now Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I think that as the alderperson, I would those people who want to open up businesses, because we were reviewing our map and we've discovered so many areas that are in need of businesses. North Avenue, Division, Armitage, Grand, there are so many empty storefronts there. I would welcome anyone that wants to open a business to come in the office, talk to our staff, talk with the police so that they can know what is safest, what are the bad areas.
All right, thank you both. Now, continuing the topic of economic development, we have a two-part question. First, the ward has seen some major development projects. Please discuss how you plan to support and provide oversight for projects in the ward. What other projects do you support, especially those that may provide residents with more goods and services? For this question, you will have 60 seconds to answer, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Well, I welcome constituents to my office to meet and discuss about the development in our area. We've had too many condos built, which are causing our seniors and our longtime residents to flee the area. We need affordability and accessibility in our area. So I welcome those that want to invest in our community to come talk to us. We set aside a day where the entire community can come and meet and discuss what investments can we bring to our community that is going to benefit us. But one of the things that we need to do is think about our seniors, think about our long-term residents, because we cannot continue to allow them to get pushed out. We need affordable housing for our residents. We need to do better.
All right, thank you so much. And now Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. In the 26th ward, we have had an influx of multi-million-dollar developments that have unfortunately been the face of gentrification in the 26th ward. Again, I have knocked the precinct, the ward for over 5 months and have noted that at least 24 families are putting up their houses for sale because they can't keep up with the property tax increases. We will continue to develop in our ward, but what we want to develop is affordable housing opportunities for families, elders, low income and working families. But more importantly, we also want to build affordable home ownership opportunities. Right now, there are about 30 city lots in the 26th ward in which we can build affordable houses that we can sell to our low income and working families across the ward so that we can begin developing that generational wealth that so many families are working so hard for, but that also we can put those houses in a trust so that they are not going to suffer from the property tax increases that often displace us from our communities. And so looking at the development is multifaceted, and I'm ready to do that work.
Great, thank you. And now we will be moving on to 2 audience questions. First, regarding transportation. It feels CTA service has deteriorated in the last couple of years. Do you have any plans to improve public transportation in the 26th ward? For this question, you will have 30 seconds, starting with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. Look, we are seeing ghost buses. We are seeing buses that are not clean. More importantly, we know that there are thousands of vacancies in CTA today. We have a moral obligation to ensure that everyone who takes public transportation is safe, both physically and medically. And we have to ensure that we are holding the CTA administration accountable to providing that cleanliness. But more importantly, I will be an advocate to ensuring that we are hiring interventionists and preventionists to staff our CTA so that they can be de-escalators in providing public safety.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I agree. We need cleaner, safer CTA. We need to hold them accountable to hire people that can keep our CTA safe for our children, for our adults. We need better service to be. We need to hold them accountable to make sure that they're hiring people to get to for the CTA.
Thank you, candidates. And just a quick reminder, you may finish your sentence when you see the stop sign, but please do not go over time. But now moving on to our second audience question. This question is regarding community input. Both candidates say that communities will have input into the way their budget is used. In what ways have you demonstrated your ability to work well in the community in the past? For this question, you will have 45 seconds, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I have an open door policy. When someone wants to come on in and let's talk. I have worked closely with different organizations and churches to provide food codes. I work well with organizations. I work well with community members to get things done because it's about our community and it's about working together, regardless of race, gender. It doesn't matter. We're here to work for our community, and that's what I will do.
Thank you. Now moving on to Ms. Fuentes.
Yeah, I spent the last 7 years leading a coalition called the Puerto Rican Agenda, a coalition that has members that span across the political spectrum, bringing them together to be able to produce policy and legislation that really seeks for the self-determination of people across the city of Chicago. Now, leading an organization like that is not an easy feat. You grapple with many different interests and political ideologies at the same time. But what you have to be able to produce as evident as a leader is someone who can bring those people together and be able to produce things in the community. I have written the state designated cultural district bill that was passed and signed by the governor to ensure that we'll have something like Puerto Rico Town in the state of Illinois. I was a part of ensuring that the flags were landmarked as a historical district. I was a part of producing the housing summit that planned the 900 units of affordable housing that would be built in this community, all with different folks.
All right, thank you, candidates. Now moving on to our next topic of housing. Some residents have been heavily impacted by gentrification. Furthermore, with economic development, housing becomes more expensive for long-term residents who may not be able to pay higher rents or higher property taxes. please share your thoughts on how you will increase affordable housing and homeownership in the ward. You will have 60 seconds for this questions, starting with Ms. Fuentes.
All right. I will ensure that I'm working with the Department of Housing to continue to bring affordable housing to the 26th ward. We have phenomenal housing agencies like Bickerdike, Lucha, and Hispanic Housing, and many other housing developers that are coming to the 26th ward with the interest of sustaining working families. We have over 400 affordable housing units that are up to queue. If elected, I will make sure that we get shovels into the ground to build those. But more importantly, I'm going to make sure that we prioritize those 30 lots and build affordable home ownership opportunities, and that we begin to grapple with the tax assessments in our community. I had a conversation with Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi about 2 weeks ago, and there is a real need to challenge those assessments that have displaced families across the 26th ward. Again, over 24 families putting up their houses for sale because they can no longer be here. Now, we see landlords raise rent, and they're raising rent because they're trying to keep up with property taxes. We have to ensure that we're passing legislation that incentivizes long-term residents and that we are fighting for rent control in the state of Illinois.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Gonzalez, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Well, property taxes are sky high, and it's the highest it's been in years. And we need affordable housing. We don't need affordable buildings that look like affordable housing, and it's just a bunch of condos. We need real affordable. We need to build those empty lots, as my opponent says. We need to build affordable homes where our people here can buy these homes, have the first floor and the basement as for the landlord, and then the second floor as a rental unit to help with mortgage. I would demand a property assessment from our assessor, Fritz Kagi, because our taxes are extremely high, and it's affecting everyone in our community, not just the homeowners, but the renters as well, because the rents are so high. Our landlords are trying to keep up with the high taxes, so they're making these rents incredibly high, and in turn is moving our people out.
Thank you. And now for a quick follow-up question. Do you support the passage of the Bring Chicago Home Ordinance? This ordinance calls for raising the city's real transfer taxes on sales of properties worth $1 million or more to fund homelessness services in the city, including permanent and temporary affordable housing. For this question, you will have 30 seconds, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first part of. You broke up.
All right, to repeat the question, do you support the passage of the Bring Chicago Home Ordinance? The Bring Chicago Home Ordinance calls for raising the city's real transfer taxes on the sales of properties worth $1 million or more to fund homelessness services in the city, including permanent and temporary affordable housing. For this question, you will have 30 seconds, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I absolutely support it. I see that New York is spending $1.4 billion, Los Angeles $636 billion, and Chicago only $26 million on our homeless issue. I believe that this ordinance is strong. I believe we need to push it in City Hall, and I believe I will be that person to fight for this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Fuentes.
I will absolutely support the Bring Home Chicago ordinance. I have sat on picket lines with the Bring Home Chicago collective. I have sat in meetings and been endorsed by the Illinois Union for the Homeless, because we had an opportunity to house the homeless across the city of Chicago, and we had older people who did not show up to work to pass that ordinance. That is criminal. Our constituents vote for us so that we can be elected representatives to ensure that we are protecting all residents, including our homeless. When we're talking about housing, we have to be talking about public housing, true affordability, and permanent housing for our homeless population. These cold weathers are what is the difference between life and death for our homeless population. We have a moral obligation to house them.
Thank you. And now we will be moving on to the topic of the environment. We're going to start with a two-part question. The city of Chicago over a decade ago dissolved its Department of Environment, leaving a broad range of environmental issues to be dealt with across scattered city departments. Do you support the reestablishment of the Department of Environment? Second, what do you think are the most urgent environmental issues facing this ward, and how do you plan on addressing them? You have 60 seconds to answer this question, starting with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. I am going to ensure that we reinstate the Department of Environment. There are two issues that are facing the 26th ward. That is the issue of clean air and clean water. In the 26th ward, and I've been working with Argonne Laboratory through the Puerto Rican Agenda to do an assessment of the 26th ward. Our community has gotten hotter over time. We are watching families spend more money in cooling their houses every year because we do not have enough trees and we are not producing enough clean air. More importantly, we have so many households across the 26th ward that are not given lead tests for their water pipes, and we have not replaced the water pipes at the rate that we should. I'm committed as the 26th ward alderperson to ensure that we are providing every resident across the 26th ward with a test. You don't have to register to receive that test. The way the system is set up now, everyone's going to get it automatically, and that we are pressuring departments to ensure that we are replacing those water pipes at a rate that our individuals deserve, because our families deserve the right to drink clean water.
Thank you. And now we will be hearing from Ms. Gonzalez.
Well, I am definitely for bringing back the Department of Environment. We need clean water. We need clean air. We have in our households lead pipes that haven't been removed, and I agree testing these for free. When I was discussing these Sierra Club, I was that it's going to take at least 50 years to get this resolved, and not completely resolved. That is one of the biggest things. One of the biggest issues in our area is these lead pipes, because it causes our children to have issues such as autism, epilepsy. So we need clean water for our families here in the 26th ward, and I would be an advocate to getting these lead pipes removed from our ward.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will be moving on to the topic of Humboldt Park. The Park District and the city's Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events seem to have control over whether permits are issued for events such as festivals in Humboldt Park and elsewhere. How will you, as alderperson, make sure you and the community have a say? For this, you will have 45 seconds, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Well, I believe that the community is the one who decides what festivals should be here at Humboldt Park. We will have a community forum to discuss what we're gonna issue permits for, but we have to be realistic. It's not just one or two festivals. We have about 6 different festivals in Humboldt Park, and everyone deserves opportunity to enjoy their music, their culture. So I believe the community input is extremely important to getting the right festivals in our park.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Fuentes.
Yeah, I mean, for clarity, right now, the alderperson does not have any power over the permits that are given to festivals in the Chicago Park District. That is solely the responsible of the Park District. The alderman has no say. What I want to ensure is that we're applying pressure to the CEO of the Park District and the board of the Park District to begin to change the regulations that does not allow community and the alderperson to have say in what happens in our neighborhood park. I want to ensure that the community can have the right to determine which festivals they want to celebrate, but more importantly, which festivals are we providing incentives to and which festivals are we charging? And so in order to do that, we need to apply pressure to the CEO and the board to change the regulations that are currently in place that do not allow for community voice.
Thank you. And now we will be moving on to the issue of city government and transparency. Chicago's City Council has made some progress towards becoming more transparent and accountable. Nonetheless, the work is far from finished. How should the City Council bring greater transparency to city government and accountability for ethical violations? For this question, you have 45 seconds, starting with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. For me, we have to be able to close the loopholes on what we are sharing with the city, right? What we are sharing with our residents. We have done a much better job at being transparent with residents across the city of Chicago of things that are brought to City Council. But there are still rules in place that have not allowed everything that happens in City Council to be general public knowledge. And we have to be able to change that. Every resident across the 26th ward votes for each city council member and the mayor. They deserve to know the decisions that are being made that are going to impact them. In order to do that, we need an ethics reform. We need city council members that are going to ensure that we are changing policies that allow for true transparency, just honesty out of city council to the residents of the 26th ward. There should be no longer backhand deals or ordinance that are decided upon without the general public knowing.
Thank you. And now moving on to Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. I believe in accountability. I believe in our community having the say-so in what happens in their community. I also believe in the community knowing everything that is happening in City Council. There should never be a black. The community doesn't know what is going on. We, as a community, need to fight to make sure that our elected official parent does have meetings where the community is involved. So we need more of that, and we need it in City Council. And I'm going to fight to make sure that every time something is brought up, the community in the 26th ward, the entire community, is aware and is able to make decisions on everything that is being voted for.
Thank you. And now we will be moving on to an audience question regarding food insecurity. How will candidates work across the 26th ward and city to address immediate issues of food insecurity, while also working to address root causes of food inequity that have created this crisis? For this question, you will have 30 seconds, starting with Ms. Gonzalez.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I think we need more grocery stores in our community. We have a lot of areas that have no place to shop for food. And if you want to shop, you have to take the bus. I believe in having farmers markets, allowing people that are growing these fruits and vegetables to put them out in the farmers market for better accessibility. And I think the farmers market needs to accept link in order for to buy these products from them, and it's not just cash pay.
Thank you. And now Ms. Fuentes.
Yeah, I mean, we are seeking to represent a community that has the highest rates of diabetes, heart blood pressure, because of the food inequities and injustice and inaccessibility in our community. Not only do we need more grocery stores, we also have to be able to grapple with the fact that we have the resources to grow our own food, but do not have the investment or the tools to do so. I'm committed to ensuring that we are building and developing more gardens across the 26th ward and giving access to every constituent. But we are also one of the communities that have the ability to build greenhouses across our community so that we can begin providing the type of foods that our community needs to be healthy.
Right, thank you, candidates. And now we're going to go to our final question before closing statements. What are two other major issues in the ward that we haven't touched on this evening? And how do you plan on addressing them during the next 4 years? We will begin with Ms. Fuentes.
Absolutely. Economic development is one of the greatest issues in our community and the growth of a workforce. We have more than 75% of the population in the 26th ward that leaves the district to work, when we can be providing the workforce opportunities right here in the 26th ward. I'm committed to ensuring that we are filling every vacant commercial storefront with businesses that are going to hire folks that live in the community. We also have to be able to grapple with the understanding that many small businesses, particularly business of color, do not get the resources to be able to grow, to sustain themselves, and to thrive. In order to do so, we need an older person that's going to ensure that they are concerned with the business sector, is going to partner with every single business across the 26th ward, and is going to hold city agencies accountable to ensuring that they receive the resources that they need. We have many grants and many loans that the city offers that many of our businesses do not qualify for because they have not had the formal business practices in place. I will make sure that we can get them there.
Right, thank you. And now, Ms. Gonzalez, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. I also believe that one of the biggest issues is businesses. We have so many vacant storefronts that can be revitalized and bring businesses into our community. And in turn, the businesses, they don't just fill these storefronts, but they add financial assistance to the ward. It adds jobs for the people that live in the community. And there are different grant programs that small businesses can apply for. And we need an older person in city council that is going to businesses to get the right grants, businesses so that they could thrive in our community and bring jobs to the people that live in the community.
All right, thank you so much. And now we will be concluding the night with closing statements, starting with Ms. Fuentes. You have 90 seconds.
Thank you. I am a child of this neighborhood. I spent my entire political and professional career working right here in the 26th ward, 10 years in education. I'm a restorative justice practitioner, a healing centered engagement practitioner. I'm a policy advocate, an organizer, and an activist. I understand the pain that our community is in, but more importantly, I understand the beauty that exists here. I am politically savvy enough to understand that we have to legislate differently in order to make a difference. We have to build coalitions in order to build a movement. And we have to make sure that we are bringing everyone to the table. My experience has allowed me to write legislation, to pass legislation at the state level. I have been a part of electing the most progressive Latina candidates in the state of Illinois. Congresswoman Delia Ramirez, State Senator Cristina Pasanizayas, Representative Lillian Jimenez, all women who are coming right out of our community who have been ready to do the work and legislate differently. That deserves to be matched at the city council with someone who carries the same type of work ethic, someone who carries the same type of energy, and someone who's going to lead with love and care, because to be an elected official is not a business transaction. We are seeking to represent every constituent in the 26th ward, and they deserve to be thought of every time we go to city council. And that is what I am prepared to do.
Thank you, candidate. And now, Ms. Gonzalez's closing statement.
Thank you. Well, I was raised in the community. I was a single mother, very young. I put my kids through school. I put myself through school. I know what it is to fight, to try to pay my rent and not knowing if I was going to be able to provide food for my kids. I've lived the situations that a lot of our families are living. So I know what we're struggling. I know what we need. I am ready. I am ready to serve my community. No side deals, no private meetings. I am ready to work for the people. Our office will be our office. It will be the people's office. We'll have community forums, input from the community of what needs to be done in our community. I've struggled. I made it. I made it. I raised my children. They made it. And I want the same for my grandchildren. So I want to be that representative in city council that is going to take concerns of my community, of our community, to city council and get resolutions. So I am ready to work with everyone in the 26th ward, and not just one area, not just one people, because I'm not working for people that look like me. I'm working for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you both. This concludes our forum for tonight. A warm thank you to our candidates for participating, as well as for our timekeeper in making sure that the timing is correct. Now I will be handing it back to Catherine Mardykes for some closing remarks.
Hi, that was fantastic. Bravo to everyone. And thank you, audience, for coming. Bravo to you for showing up. I have put a few things into chat that might be useful for you. I just wanted to bring these things up before we left. That you will find the recording to this candidates forum at the league site. There's I've included the link to where you can find all of the candidate forums that we've been doing. There's some that are coming up. Those that are past, you can click on them and get to the recording. This recording will be on the same webpage where you registered, but I've included it in the chat below. Also, I just wanted to make sure that you remember that Election Day is February 28th, and mail-in voting is already underway. Early voting at the super site is also underway, but what's going to be interesting to all of us is early voting in the wards starts February 13th. Those of you who are in the 26th ward, Humboldt Park Library is your early voting site. Finally, I'm going to put something else in here that I think is going to be very useful, and that is the Illinois Voter Guide. And if you go to the, whoops, I got to find myself again. Chat is tricky sometimes. If you go to the Illinois Voter Guide, I've given you the URL in the chat. You will be able to put in your address. It'll pull up an exact copy of your ballot. This is a copy. There's no electronic voting in Chicago, but it's a copy of your ballot, and you'll see who is going to be on there. Know that there's going to be candidates for the police district councils. And in the Illinois Voter Guide, you will be able to read a little bit about what that is. We also have asked candidates questions. The answers to those surveys will be under all of those candidates. What we've done this year, which is going to be fun, is when you put your address on and you pull up the 26th ward, you will see right off the bat that there will be a link to this candidates forum that you can watch. Also, one last thing that I would like to add. Normally, as I was telling you before, we're trying to mimic what we do as an in-person candidates forum, and it would be at this time, we can't mimic that the audience could mingle with the candidates. So we can't do that, but they also get to hand out their literature. And I think that it's especially fair that the candidate who could not make it, I'm giving you links to all of their websites. Okay. And I think that concludes our forum. And thank you. Go have a wonderful dinner, everybody.